Hi, BookTube. This is Johnny from West Michigan. I thought I'd make a video. It's been a day. But today is Monday, April the 24th. It is 8:11 at night here in West Michigan, here by Lake Michigan. And I'm sitting here and just deciding what to do tonight. I've been reading, this evening I was reading a book that I bought last year, but I haven't just kind of glanced at it. It's called Dangerous Passions, Deadly Sins, Learning from the Psychology of Ancient Monks by Dennis Okholm. Yeah, I bought this last year at Baker Bookhouse in Grand Rapids. I was reading the first chapter on the sin of gluttony. I was thinking about that because lately I find myself eating uncontrollably. I've never been really into eating or food or really caring about what I eat, just basic food, but I find myself lately kind of gluttonous, or I'm just eating all the time and I don't know why. It's not that I gorge myself, it's just that I find myself eating more than normal. I'm not gaining any weight, but I just would like to be more aware of what I'm eating. I'm just eating unaware. I'm just wandering into the kitchen or getting something out of the refrigerator, or I don't sit down and eat 3 meals a day. I tend to eat small amounts throughout the day. Like I'll have a bowl of oatmeal in the morning with a cup of coffee and a glass of water, and in the afternoon I'll have a sandwich with some soup, and maybe around 3 o'clock I'll eat some crackers with peanut butter, and then when my wife gets up in the evening around 6:30, I'll eat like some basic food, and that's about it. But I still think I'm eating too much. So I'm trying to be aware. My wife said tonight what I should do is write down what I eat each day. Cut down on my carbs, not eat so much bread, eat more apples, eat more vegetables, drink more water, things like that. I know I could just be freaking out. It could be just nothing. So anyway, so I was reading on the 7 deadly sins. You have gluttony. Then the next chapter is on lust, greed, anger, envy, sloth, vainglory. And so yeah. So I got this last year and I've just been reading it this evening. Today I just basically read, before I read this on the Dangerous Passions, Deadly Sins, I read Scripture as Real Presence, Sacramental Exegesis in the Early Church by Boersma. I was reading the chapter here on, it's a really interesting chapter, I'm really enjoying it. It's called Chapter 5, Incarnational Reading, Origin on the Historical Narrative of Joshua. Really enjoying that. So that's what I read today. Yesterday I've been mentioning St. John of the Cross and on the Spiritual Canticle. I'm almost done with it. I could sit down and read it probably one couple hours, but I read it and then I meditate upon it, and I take notes and I use it for prayer, thoughts for prayer, petitions for prayer, that the Lord by His Spirit would work these things in my heart, give me a thirst for God, a longing for God, things like that. So talking about the spiritual life, I got this out, the Philokalia on prayer of the heart, writings from the Philokalia on the prayer of the heart. These are the writings of the Isidoric fathers on prayer. And many years ago, I bought this many years ago with the complete Philokalia, which is down in the lower level. It's 4 volumes. This is just the sections on prayer. And this has always been something I've thought about when it comes to reading about spiritual experiences, like the spiritual experiences of St. John of the Cross, or reading monastic spirituality. What's the benefit of that? And in the foreword to this, I always found this very informative and thought-provoking. He says here, and the introduction here, it's not the foreword, the introduction, see I have my thing. He says here, travelers write accounts of all they see worth noting on their journey. So did the chosen of God, who had explored in various directions all the paths of spiritual life, write notes of all they met with and experienced in their arduous journeying. But the purpose and meaning of these notes is different. Those who have no possibility of traveling may form, without moving from where they are, a fairly adequate idea of foreign lands through reading the travel notes of other wayfarers, because the modes of life in all creatures is more or less similar in all countries. It is quite different in spiritual life. Only those can understand such notes as are following the path of all that kind of life. For those who have not entered this path, it is quite an unknown science. But even those who have entered upon it cannot understand everything in those notes at once. Their ideas and conceptions become more and more clear as they advance further and penetrate deeper into the country of the spirit. As personal experiences of spiritual life accumulate, indications derived from experience, which have been noted down by the Holy Fathers, gradually become more clear and intelligible to them. At the same time, however, descriptions of various manifestations of spiritual life contained in the writings of the Holy Fathers may be a gift useful even to all Christians in general. They give everyone to understand that he or she has not yet had experiences contained in such descriptions. It means that his or her established modes of life, though capable of being reconciled with Christian conscience, is not the final perfection, above which there is nothing to wish for and beyond which there is nowhere to go. To understand this cannot but excite zeal for achievement. It must beckon a man to move on, pointing to something better than he has. For those who have already entered the path leading to the best and most perfect, such reading provides the necessary guidance in doubtful and puzzling circumstances, both when the guidance of direct experience is lacking and when this latter guidance encounters problems which it cannot solve and which do not permit a final decisions that would banish all vacillations from the traveler. It is often very important in some particular case to know how and where to put one's feet or foot so as to avoid a mistake. And here one or another saying of the Fathers disperses the darkness, shining like a streak of lighting in the night. Generally speaking, these writings are a spiritual forcing house in which the faithful enter with their conscious and their heart by reading instructions concerning phenomena of spiritual life. A man is here subjected to the palpable influences of the contemplation so invoked. Thus stimulated, he feels that at those moments he floats in another atmosphere, life-giving and light-giving. Those are moments of joy, and it is such moments that fresh shoots are born and strengthened on the tree of spiritual life. Therefore, it is not to be wondered at that he who has had this experience hastens to read descriptions of spiritual life from the experience of others as soon as he finds a free moment, just as a man who likes making profit hastens to places which promise him profit, and as a man bent on pleasure is drawn to places of amusement Such a man often longs to breathe the inspiring and revitalizing spiritual air. And yet it is not idle curiosity. No, it is a matter of essential necessity for the progress and welfare of our spirit. And that's the benefit of reading, books like Dangerous Passions and Deadly Sins and the writings of St. John the Cross. They make us aware of spiritual experiences beyond our own. They give us, make us realize that there are more spiritual growth and development is needed in our life. That what we're experiencing is not all that there is in the spiritual life, or even in the secular life. That there is experiences that we can experience God and know God, and that there is more to learn and more to know, and that we get kind of encouraged in spiritual guidance and direction by reading the spiritual fathers, the Greek Orthodox fathers, the writings of St. John of the Cross, the readings of the Philokalia. So there are benefits. That's why I read them, because that's why I read St. John of the Cross. St. John of the Cross has really spoken to me many times over the 45 years I've been a Christian, and given me spiritual guidance, or encouraged me, or made me aware that I wasn't just going crazy. So I just thought I'd bring that out tonight. So in my diary today, I ended on page 369. So tomorrow, on the 25th, I'll be on page 370. Today, this morning we went out for breakfast, and then we went for a walk at a local city park. It was a very nice spring day. And then when we got home, my wife went on errands and did things, and I went to thrift stores, local, just around where we live here in West Michigan, Holland. I found this novel by Greene. I have this already, The Power and the Glory, this novel. It's one of the most famous novels. But I got this for the cover. That's why I got it. I just like the cover of it. It's a Viking press. This edition came out in 1961. It's kind of old, but I kind of like the cover. And then I found this fantasy little book by A.S. Brandt, Ragnarok and the End of the Gods. And then I found this nonfiction kind of cultural kind of studies called The Random Family, Love, Drugs, Trouble, and the Coming of Age in the Bronx. It's kind of like just looking at these people's lives who are involved in terrible love relationships and drugs and have all kinds of trouble. It's just kind of like just getting down and gritty about people's lives. It's nonfiction. Then I found from my Nirvana collection, it's called The Love and Death, The Murder of Kurt Cobain. That's Kurt Cobain. I've shown in the past my Nirvana collection. These are by Max Wallace and Ian Halperin. They believe that Kurt Cobain was murdered. There's a conspiracy to cover it up. So I got that from my Nirvana collection. Love and Death, The Murder of Kurt Cobain. And then I found this book. It's a biography, Charles Dickens in Love, by Robert Garnett. It says here, when Charles Dickens died in 1870, he was best known man in English-speaking world, the preeminent Victorian celebrity, universally mourned as both a noble spirit and the greatest of novelists. Yet when the first person named in his will turned out to be an unknown woman named Ellen Ternan, only a handful of people had any idea who she was. And her conspicuous presence in his will was a mystery. Of his romance with Ellen, Dickens had written, "It belongs to my life and probably will only die out of the same with the proprietor." And so it was. Until his death, she remained the most important person in his life. She was not the first woman who had fired his imagination. As a young man, he had fallen deeply in love with a woman with, quote, pervaded in every chink and crevice, end of quote, of his mind for 3 years. Maria Beadnell. And when she eventually jilted him, he vowed that, quote, I'll never can love any human creature breathing but yourself, end of quote. A few years later, he was stunned by the sudden death of his young sister-in-law, Mary Scott Hognarth, and worshipped her memory for the rest of his life. Quote, I solemnly believe that so perfect a creature never breathed, end of quote, he declared. And when he died, over 30 years later, he was still wearing her ring. Charles Dickens has no rival as the most fertile creative imagination since William Shakespeare, and no one influenced his imagination more powerfully than these 3 women. His muses and teachers in the School of Love, using hundreds of primary sources, Charles Dickens in Love narrates the story of the most intense romances of Dickens' life and shows how his novels both testify to his own strongest affections and serve as memorials to the young women he loved all too well, if not always wisely. So I have a big Charles Dickens collections, biographies, literary studies, his novels. So I got this from my Charles Dickens collection. So those are the used books I picked up today at thrift stores. This is what I'm reading. Like I said, reading Dangerous Passion, Deadly Sins, learning from the psychology of ancient monks, reading Scripture, Real Presence, Sacramental Exegesis in the Early Church, and reading Saint on the Cross. That's what I read today. I don't know what I'll read tomorrow. Tomorrow is a Tuesday. I don't know. So I'm hoping you're having a good Monday and that you'll have a good week. And I suppose I'll sign off till the next time. Bye.